Hey, I'm Owen from Bite-Size Irish Gaelic, and I want to cover which dialect of the Irish language of Irish Gaelic to learn when you're setting off to learn the Irish language. I want to give you the upfront answer, and that is to don't worry about it. And you might have a lot of questions around it, so I'll try to cover some of that. But basically, please don't let the question of dialects stop you in your learning. There's some phrases that change from area to area. There's even some grammatical differences, but that's not a reason to not learn the Irish language. It actually doesn't matter so much. Like, if you're speaking with an Irish language native speaker and you say "Kajemaratatu" or "Kunasatatu," those are two different phrases that we can easily pick out. They are from different dialects, and it's asking, how are you? If you ask me that, I'm a Munster Irish speaker. Does it matter to me which phrase you use? The answer is no. It might have mattered more years ago. These days we've got the Irish language radio, we've got Irish language TV. Very interestingly about the Irish language, people don't default to like some kind of national central dialect when they're speaking. They generally speak their own dialect, which means that's a very specific feature of the Irish language, in my opinion. It means that you get exposed to all the dialects, all the different accents and little phrases as people discuss, you know, on the media, on TV, on the news, even on Twitter videos and that type of thing. So it doesn't matter. So one question is, what happens if you're learning a mix of dialects? Shouldn't you be learning like a certain phrase, how they say it in a certain place? And actually, again, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're learning the Irish language, for me, you shouldn't care. You can be aware of certain phrases. Oh yeah, this phrase comes from Connemara, or a certain phrase comes from Donegal. But it shouldn't stop you. Again, we say at Bite-Size Irish Gaelic that you can always specialise later, right? So you might have ancestry from a certain place of Ireland, you might be travelling to a certain place of Ireland quite often, and you might really want to specialise in that local area. But again, even that for me is again not important. It's not a blocker. I'm trying to say that the issue of dialects do exist in the Irish language, and it's a lovely feature of the Irish language. They are part of what the Irish language is. So I'm not belittling any one dialect. I'm just saying, as a learner, it shouldn't stop you from learning. So to step back a bit, what are the dialects of the Irish language, of Irish Gaelic? Well, we've got like the Ulster dialect, which is the up north part of Ireland. These days we have the Connacht or the Connemara dialect in the west of Ireland. And then generally we have the more Munster dialect down south, like Cork and Kerry. Now, there are some other Irish language speaking areas of Ireland, and indeed there were dialects all across Ireland. I'm sure village to village there were changes in what the words people used, expressions people used, little accents change. So we have more of a simplified structure, I think, these days. But it's still fair to say that we have different dialects. Another thing about dialects, you might not even be aware of them. Like for example, in the English language absolutely has dialects. But when you hear a person speaking from a certain state or a certain country, you don't feel like it's stopping you from understanding, right? Although, if you really broke it down on paper, the expressions could be quite different. One last point I wanted to make, a little tangential to the dialects, is when you hear the English language spoken in Ireland, you can really hear the dialects of the Irish language shining through, because the Irish accent is being dominated. It's like it's been formed by the dialect of the Irish language that the people spoke before they adopted the English language, pretty much, right? So in Ulster, the Ulster Irish language dialect is really close to the Ulster accent in English. Same goes, for example, in Kerry in the southwest of Ireland, a place dear to my heart. when you hear people they're speaking what you might call like a more rural English language, it's just lovely to hear, because it's just a sing-song, and it reflects the dialect of the Irish language in that part of Ireland. So thanks for watching. I hope that this at least has been informative, and that I help to break down the barrier of getting into the Irish language, making it part of your everyday. For me, it's not a question of studying the language every day, it's a question of making the language part of your everyday. There's a subtle difference, but I think it's a fundamental difference. You're trying to immerse yourself in the language. Sure, you can study it sometimes, and you should, you need to as an adult learner. But you should do what you can to get the language into your life. To flip it the other way around, how could you make sure that you're not learning the Irish language? And that's just keep it out of your life, right? So flip that around and make it a fundamental part of your everyday life. Some music that you listen to, podcasts, TV shows that you watch online, communities that you take part in, clothes you wear with certain slogans on your clothes. So please make the Irish language part of your everyday, and that's a real connection, a real personal, deep way to make a connection to your Irishness. So thanks for watching. I've been Owen from Bite Size Irish Gaelic.